Welcome to Cheltenham Borough Council Licensing Subcommittee Alcohol and Gambling, being held on Monday the 27th of October 2025. My name is Councillor Simon Wheeler and I have been elected as Chair of this committee. This meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council's YouTube channel, and the recordings of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until the issues can be resolved. If you're here to make representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery. The recordings will be held by the Council for 5 months. Please note that fire alarm tests are not expected, so if the alarms do sound, you should immediately make your way out using the nearest exit, which would be just behind you there. There is also one just here. Apologies, I have no apologies, and I have no declarations of interest unless any member shows me different. No. Agenda item for determination of a new application for a premises licence. Because this is a regulatory item, members must be present and have heard the proceedings in their entirety to vote on this item. We will ensure that the applicant and the applicant's representatives, if they have one, are present in the meeting. I will ask the licensing officer to introduce the report. Members will get an opportunity to ask licensing officer questions. Then the objectors will get will be given the opportunity to ask the licensing officers questions. Then the applicant or their representative will get the opportunity to ask the licensing officer questions. Then the objectors will be given the opportunity to speak. We ask them to limit their questions to no more than 10 minutes. Members and the applicant will be given the opportunity to ask the objectors questions, and then the applicant or their representative will be given the opportunity to present their application or make their case. We ask the applicant to try to limit this to no more than 10 minutes. Members can then ask the applicant question. Objectors can ask the applicant questions. The applicant will be given the final right of reply. Then members will then retire to debate the matter and to write the decision notice. Members will return to the chamber and the chair or legal officer will deliver the outcome. I don't know if we want to, as we discussed once before, discussion with members whether we want to actually retire to make our comments or whether we feel that we do it in private. I'll ask that question when we get to that time. Right, I would like to invite the licensing officer to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The committee is convened today to determine an application for a new premises licence for the Tiny Tavern at Unit 4, The Studios, Royal Well Place, Cheltenham. The application is made for the supply of alcohol every day between midday and 1 a.m, the performance of a film on Saturday and Sundays only from midday to 10:30 at night, the performance of live music also on Saturdays and Sundays only between midday and 10:30 at night, and the performance of recorded music every day of the week between midday and 11 p.m. During consultation, relevant representations were received, and the authority must therefore hold a hearing to determine the application. The authority may grant the licence as applied for, grant the licence subject to modified conditions considered appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor, or reject the application. When coming to its decision, the committee must also ensure it is promoting the licensing objectives, these being the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. As stated, the committee has been asked to determine the application due to relevant representations having been received. These are comprised of 5 objections from other persons and 1 comment from a responsible authority, Environmental Health. And copies of these representations are attached as appendices 2 and 3 to the report. When determining the application, members must have regard to Cheltenham Borough Council's adopted statement of licensing policy, but each application should be determined on its own merits. The applicant should show they are promoting the 4 licensing objectives within their application, and the report considers how they can demonstrate this in greater detail. Members should note Cheltenham Borough Council's statement of licensing policy includes core hours, which are as follows. For restaurants, a commencement hour no earlier than 10 a.m. and a terminal hour no later than 1 a.m. And for pubs, a commencement hour no earlier than 10 a.m. and a terminal hour no later than 3 a.m. Members should also consider national guidance when determining the application. The report covers the national guidance in greater detail, including the licensing objectives and how applicants should address these. Members must determine the application on its individual merits with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, these being, as stated, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. With regard to the prevention of public nuisance, Environmental Health should be considered the lead authority, and if any concerns remain, members should focus on the more sensitive periods, i.e. night or early morning. Conversely, members should note that traffic or vehicle access is not a licensing concern and does not fall under any of the licensing objectives, and thus should not be taken into account when determining the application. The committee must therefore give weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, the representations and supporting information presented by the parties, national guidance, and the authority's own statement of licensing policy. Members must determine the application on its own merits and should have regard to the adopted probity guide. And that, Chair, is my report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from members?
Yes, thank you. I just want to clarify that the timings are as you have just stated and not as in the original application.
Yeah, that's right. So following intervention from Environmental Health, different timings were agreed to the licensable activities than were initially applied for at the start of the application period.
Right, the objectors, are there any questions of the officer from the objectors? Okay, thank you very much. Has the applicant got any questions of the officers?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. Right, I have 2 objectors who would like to address the committee. Please, can I have Ian Perry? Can you address the committee?
Yes, sir, thank you. You've got my written objection. I'd just like to sort of flesh those points out, but I will be fairly brief. The property at 15 Royal Crescent, where this building is at the rear of 15 Royal Crescent, that property has been in my family for some 60 years. I spent most of my childhood playing in the yard at the back. And at the back, there were 6 former garages, of which this property forms one, which some years ago were given planning permission to move into business starter units effectively. And I think they won an award for that. My main issue is that we have vehicular and pedestrian access across the area of land that's part of the application, nothing to do with the garage itself, but across the courtyard. And we have tenants in the building, some residential, some commercial. The access is used occasionally, 7 days a week, and from early in the morning till late in the evening. I just cannot see how anyone's going to have seating in an area which is a pedestrian and vehicular right of way. I noted that you have 4 things to consider. The first being safety. It can't be safe for people to be sitting out in a courtyard when there's cars and vans. Tomorrow we've got a cherry picker coming and people coming backwards and forwards across the land. You also have to consider disorder. You also have to consider disorder. I'd like you to consider what might happen if there are a crowd of people watching something or listening to something in the area of land with alcohol involved, and we might have builders coming back to that site with their vehicles. You also have to consider nuisance. Can I ask you to consider the nuisance that this would cause to our tenants in the residential part of our building and in the commercial part of the building, of which you'll hear more in a few moments from the other people. And I'd also like you to think about the safety of children. The garage that's nearest the road at the back of Royal Crescent is presently used as a coffee pod, as you may know. There is outside seating. Whenever I go in there to park, I normally have to make sure that people move their chairs so I can get my access through. But often there are small children just wandering around there. And I think it's a disaster waiting to happen if you allow this to go ahead. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Can I just quickly address those? I must admit, I think we all very much support your views. However, we cannot consider those under licensing terms. So licensing would be really only the effects that alcohol would have. And although it was very much a concern of mine, the access when there's people there would be a planning matter, and we're not allowed to address that or take that. Not allowed to take. I am addressing it. I'm not allowed to take that into consideration, even though we very much accept that what you're asking is quite valid. Is that okay?
I quite understand that. I don't want to dance on the head of a pin, but if your brief is to consider the use of alcohol, I would suggest that this is in a totally unsuitable place for alcohol to be consumed. It's not a pub. It's basically a garage with a front door on it. And they have no other land. The land doesn't go with that property. I do take your point, though. Thank you.
Right. Kay Tibbles and Naomi Murray, would you like to make your case? Sorry, before you do, has any members got questions for Mr. Perry? No. So has the applicant got any questions to Mr. Perry?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to where we were. Kay Tibbles and Naomi Murray, if you'd like to make your case.
Thank you. Chair, members of the subcommittee and officers, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name's Naomi Murray and I'm speaking on behalf of Every Cloud Play and Creative Arts Therapy, CIC, based at 15 Royal Crescent. Unit 4, the studios, are placed to the immediate rear of our building. We are a community interest company providing specialist therapeutic play and creative arts therapy for vulnerable local children and young people, many of whom have experienced significant trauma. We work closely with No Child Left Behind, Cheltenham Borough Council's flagship project, addressing child poverty and its impact on education, exclusion, mental health and well-being. As a regular No Child Left Behind award winner, we know that our developmentally appropriate mental health service is vital to the community. Therapy can only be effective in a calm, quiet and confidential environment for children and young people and their families. When we took on our tenancy in 2023, we undertook due diligence, including discussions with the previous studio tenant, this is 4 Cats, who confirmed their delivery of their licensed activities only affected daytime therapy after 4 p.m. on 2 weekdays. If this new licensing application were granted and delivered within the weekday hours it states, it would make the premises incompatible with the therapeutic use for up to 80 weekly sessions. As the only setting of its kind in Cheltenham, every Cloud closure would be a significant loss to children's services and contradict Cheltenham Borough Council's No Child Left Behind objectives. So our objections are grounded in the 4 statutory licensing objectives under Section 4 of the Licensing Act. Promoting public safety. The proposed activities of alcohol sales, live and recorded music and film screenings create significant safety risks as licensing is being sought for an outside area which is legally and as detailed in our lease and shaded in brown on the tenancy document. It is a small private access road to our staff car park. It is not a designated courtyard or outdoor venue. Other cars from the other studios also use the area as a car park. And that access road serves several critical functions. It provides vehicular access to R4 parking spaces, used by up to 8 staff daily, but also by maintenance persons and the emergency services, which have significantly larger vehicles. And we have a right of access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It also provides emergency egress for staff, clients and visitors from our building. That is our fire exit out of the building in an emergency. And as Mr. Perry has said, it also serves as the main entrance to a ground floor residential flat. Introducing alcohol, music and film activity would mix vehicles, pedestrians and alcohol consumption in a small confined space, distracted by sound and movement, and that presents a foreseeable risk of serious injury, particularly after dark. The shared access has in part been used for seating by the coffee pod in another studio, creating frequent obstructions, reducing the side of the access road and endangering the public. I can give you a specific example of that just 3 weeks ago. Our practice manager was exiting the car park through the access road and a father had left his young toddler son unattended, walking near the seating while he went into the coffee pod to purchase his coffee. Luckily, our practice manager was diligent in her observations and she was driving forward to leave, not reversing into the access road. We're required to do this as it exits onto a main road. So the child was not hit or injured. This incident illustrates how quickly danger can arise when people view the space as somewhere to linger rather than an access road. I'm conscious of time, and Mr. Perry has also detailed on this area in terms of the egress and the access, and that this is a driveway, an access road, not a place of land that can be used for licensing objectives. So I'm going to move on to the protection of children from harm section. And this is the concern that we have most greatly at Every Cloud. So in addition to those concerns to children's safety, we'd also like to speak directly to section 4.14 of the report of the licensing officer. The protection of children from harm is particularly relevant here because our entire organisation exists to support vulnerable children and young people in Cheltenham, some of whom come from homes affected by alcohol misuse, neglect, abuse, or children from conflict areas where they have experienced sounds of war artillery. Permitting alcohol sales and associated entertainment next to their therapy rooms exposes these children to adult behaviour that could be triggering or distressing. For example, intoxication, loud or aggressive voices, inappropriate language or sexual expletives, or unsuitable film content or music, of which even a loud bass line or explicit lyrics could cause distress, or the advertising of age-inappropriate films or music which our young clients could be exposed to. We have a safeguarding duty of care to these children, and they require a quiet, confidential space to process their trauma. Allowing a premises licence for alcohol and music during our main operating hours, which are Monday to Friday, 8 till 6, of this nature in such close proximity to a child-focused mental health service would directly undermine the protection from harm objective. I'm moving on to the prevention of public nuisance section. Our therapy rooms directly back onto the proposed external licensing area. Even moderate background noise, conversation, scraping chairs or music can break a traumatised child's sense of safety or concentration. Confidentiality would also be compromised, with children potentially overhearing social or alcohol-related noise and patrons able to hear private therapeutic conversations. 15 Royal Crescent is a listed building, and as such, it does not benefit from double glazing or robust sound insulation. Sounds carry clearly and audibly. We undertook the lease for this premises specifically because it was away from licensed premises. It was alongside other adult therapy, coaching, and yoga practices. Introducing alcohol and music during our operating hours would fundamentally change the nature of the business area we operate in, and it would prevent us from being able to guarantee that therapy can be delivered safely and effectively. As detailed, it would warrant this building being incompatible with being a children's mental health therapy centre. Finally, we raised concerns regarding the prevention of crime and disorder. Unfortunately, our existing experience of this site already raises concerns which would be exacerbated by this licence. The access area and our parking spaces are poorly lit with no CCTV coverage. And whilst we note that the applicant will improve this for their area, this will only serve as contrast to make ours darker and more likely to attract unwanted behaviour. We have found litter, broken bottles, cigarette ends and even drug paraphernalia in this shared space, as well as evidence of people using the area as a toilet. Adding alcohol and late night activity would only increase these risks, potentially leading to vandalism, antisocial behaviour and damage to our property. Such activity would not only endanger our staff, but would compromise our emergency exit route and raise issues in using our car park for out-of-hours events, which we have full legal recourse to do, but again, affecting both crime prevention and public safety. Before closing, we wish to raise our objections that the application does not evidence any consideration of the licensing objectives specific to the context in which it has been applied. Namely, one, that the proposed outside licensing area is our access road. And two, that this area is directly adjoining a children's therapy practice. The absence of a risk assessment or proposed control measures for these foreseeable issues, which have already been communicated, raises questions about how the applicant intends to uphold the licensing objectives, particularly public safety and the protection of children from harm. So, in conclusion, Chair and members, we respectfully ask that this application not be granted as submitted. It would endanger public safety by mixing vehicles and the public in a confined access area not suitable for music or alcohol-led activities. It would expose vulnerable children to alcohol, music and film-related risks, directly undermining the protection from harm objective during our operating hours. It would create noise and confidentiality issues, constituting a public nuisance during our operating hours and potentially forcing the closure of a much-needed children's mental health practice, the only one that exists in Cheltenham. It would increase antisocial behaviour and security concerns contrary to the crime and disorder objective. The loss of our service to Cheltenham and surrounding areas would be devastating to the hundreds of families we help. And with the significant rise in mental health issues in this age group, closing this practice would not be in the public interest. Our closure would have a direct negative impact on the collective aims of No Child Left Behind, Cheltenham Borough Council's project to support our most vulnerable children. So on behalf of Every Cloud, Play and Creative Arts Therapy CIC, we would ask the committee to refuse this licence to ensure that our most vulnerable children can continue to receive support in a safe, calm and protected space. And both our staff, theirs and the general public are not exposed to significant public safety risks. Thank you for your time in considering our submission.
Thank you for that. And as I say, I'll relate part of the comments I made to Mr. Perry regarding access, but certainly some of the other things are worth. Do I have any questions from other members? Councillor Barrell.
Yes, thank you very much. With the concern for children who are attending your therapy sessions, have you already had problems with, crowds gathering around the coffee pod, etc.?
We do from time to time. There was an incident in the summer where parents let their children play within the car park area around by the cars. And so that noise directly underneath the therapeutic space will disrupt that session. And in some cases has meant that therapeutic processing can't take place. Mr. Perry will give evidence that actually when there was some renovation work going on in the basement flat, anyone that is talking directly outside of our windows, it's as if they're in the room. It's very, very clear and we can hear it. And some of those conversations may be adult type in the words that they are saying, and it completely disrupts the conversation that's happening above. It is an ongoing issue, and bringing in alcohol just exasperates that, I'm afraid, and we'd have more people using that space than is currently happening.
Yeah, can I also ask, you mentioned that area being used as a toilet, etc. Have you reported incidents to the police? Have there been?
Other than the fact of perhaps cigarettes or bottles or in occasional case drug paraphernalia left in the car park. This is the bit right at up close to the building. There isn't really. We have no evidence of that. There's no CCTV. We have what's left behind. It's a case of just us needing to clear it up to make it safe for our staff to use.
So do the applicants have any questions of the objectors?
No questions, thank you.
Sorry, I'm missing something here. The applicant. Oh yes, sorry. Yes, I'd like to ask the applicant to make your case, please.
Thanks,
and
Mr.
if
Chairman.
you could comment on, obviously, some of the comments that the objectors have made. It might be nice at this point to address some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think it's probably worth saying at the outset that we're not here to try and disrupt anything. I speak as the husband of the Gloucestershire lead for mental health in primary, husband of a head of the largest primary school in Gloucestershire, as an ex-naval officer with lots of experience of PTSD, etc., etc. I bought the tavern to take it from a a pub which had been absolutely decimated by Young's, a national brewer, and to make it into a more of a community space. And we're doing as much as we can to do that now. We have regular lunches from an old folks home. We have regularly 15, 20 predominantly ladies coming for lunch. We want to be a community space. What I don't want to do is to have a contentious process here. So absolutely hear what you said. Frankly, I didn't even know that you were there. So I view this whole process as being very positive, and I'd like to be collaborative in it. It's perhaps worth my saying why we want to have licensing outside, and then what we think is important to us and what we can absolutely concede. The tavern, if you know the building, has no outside space whatsoever. It's a relatively small pub. It's 2,500 square feet. During the summer, the revenue falls off a cliff. Young's, a national brewer, was simply not able to make it work. It did work under the ownership of Lucky Onion. We think we can make it work as well, but we will find it very, very difficult to do so without the ability to drive revenue during the summer. So that was our exam question. How do we drive revenue during the summer? That exam question the answer was indicated to us by the success of Four Cats, which has been mentioned already, which was a cocktail bar in one of the units, the next door, but one to the one that we've rented. And they operated for 3 years. Now, I have no knowledge about what issues they came against or any problems that they drove, but my understanding is there was nothing of any serious nature there. So whilst I understand, and I spoke to Jacob about precedent, I understand there's no precedent when it comes to licensing. Certainly, we had a degree of confidence that if Four Cats were able to make something work collaboratively, then we ought to be able to do too. So that's why we first rented it. I'd like to address some of the very specific points that you brought up, all of which I think are valid points. But I think the first one, just set the context, perhaps in respect of the licensing committee, it's not the case that the space is immediately underneath the building. The curtilage of the building actually extends quite a way into the patio area. So I think it's probably worth us just level setting what the geographic facts are here. And with respect to where the tables are, and I haven't measured this obviously, but my suspicion is they're a good 10 metres from the bottom of the building. So there's a whole car parking area which is nothing to do with the space that we're talking about here. So I think it's worth just making that clear. Let me say what we don't need, which hopefully I think will assuage many of your concerns. We don't need to show film. Certainly during the day. I mean, frankly, you can't show film during the day anyway, apart from midwinter, because clearly there's too much light. So we don't need to show film. We don't even need to have music playing. So we don't need a music to play license, to play music. We do partner with the Cheltenham Festivals. So we provide a space for both the Jazz Festival and the Music Festival as part of our ambition to be a community pub. So it would be nice to think that during the Jazz Festival and Music Festival, we can work together to see whether we can make something like that happen. But that is it's an hour session on each of those two occasions. So in respect of the license, we do not need film, we don't need music either. What we're looking for, as I said, is to try and drive our revenue during the summer period when we want to be outside. The bulk of our revenue, probably 6% of our revenue, comes from food. We're not a traditional pub. So if you go into the tavern, I don't know whether people have actually been in there, but as you walk in on the right, the bulk of the physical space is laid over to eating. We're a restaurant, effectively. And indeed, one of our other challenges is to try to get drinkers to come in after 9:30 p.m. on a Friday and Saturday, because the place is empty. So go anywhere else in Cheltenham and the various pubs will be full of drinkers. We don't have that. Our demographic is roughly between about 35 years old and 70 years old. So we're not a rowdy drinkers pub by any means. And clearly that's slightly different during the race week. Cheltenham is a very different town during race week. But we are not looking for the student market. We don't do deals on spirits. In fact, the only deal we do is Monday to Wednesday. We have 20% off everything, which brings us diners in. So for us, this is a very pragmatic way to flatten out our revenue pattern during the summer. So rather than using this committee as a sort of contentious exercise, I'd much rather think we could do this very collaboratively. And hearing of your hours of operation between 8 and 6, Monday to Friday, I'm very happy to concede whatever is required to ensure that you guys are protected. But with that slight caveat that we will be doing nothing during the day, which is not currently done by the Coffee Pod. And indeed, we're working with the Coffee Pod as well. So we've said that we absolutely don't want to take their business. They don't operate lunch as we do. But when our diners want coffee, we will not be serving them coffee. We'll be sending them to the Coffee Pod to get their coffee. So I would hope that our approach is obvious. We want to be very collaborative. We want to work in partnership. We want to be part of the community. So I would like to be able to serve alcohol during the day. I'm very happy to make that a serving of alcohol with food. We want to drive our food offer during the daytime. After 6 on a summer's evening, we need somewhere for drinkers and diners to be able to be outside. But again, we are not a drinking pub, and that's evidenced by the physical space that we have that's not given over to eating. I think the whole question of noise, speech, etc., and forgive me for saying this, I think that's a bit of a red herring in that we've got cars moving around. I actually don't think it's possible for anyone to hear. Certainly you said that it might be possible to hear therapeutic discussions happening. They're happening at conversation level. They would simply not be audible at the distance that we are. We're not underneath the building. There's a curtilage, which is probably the distance from me to the chairman before the area that I'm talking about starts. So I'd much rather deal with this, as I say, in a collaborative way, work out how we can make this work for everyone. I absolutely fully support what you're doing with your children. As I say, my wife is county lead for mental health and wellbeing for the primary stages. So I'd like to think that we can work through this so that we end up with a business which is viable. We're currently not viable. I've owned the business for a year. We're losing £25,000 a month at the moment because we're trying to get back up to where the business was under Lucky Onion. And I'll just give you some facts around that. Lucky Onion were doing about £1.2 million a year turnover. Youngs came and took the place over and they reduced the turnover to £500,000. So at start, which was in November of last year, we were at £500,000. We're currently at about £750,000. We're building the thing up by a really good food offer, but we're currently not viable. And we could easily go into administration within the next month or two. A lot of money's been pumped into it, but there's got to be a stop to that. And a really easy way for us to really stop that hemorrhaging of cash is, as we go into the summer, to just elevate the revenue. I think I've addressed most of your points, but I'm very happy to address anything else. As I say, what I'm very happy to concede is anything which, frankly, is largely irrelevant to us. We didn't want a film license so we could show films during the day. We don't have a history of showing films in the tavern. And again, contextually, when I bought the tavern, the first thing I did was strip all the televisions out. We don't want a loud pub with sport going on. We're a pub for really good food and for people to enjoy their time. Sunday lunch, or Sundays rather, we don't open Sunday evenings, is our biggest day. We have 110 covers for lunch on a good day. We're after the family money. We're after a family environment. Children are welcome. We've got lots and lots of games in the place. So I'd like to really work through this in that collaborative way, if that's possible, but I don't have a great deal of experience of this, so I've never been to one of these meetings, so I don't even know whether that is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of the applicant?
Yes, it's probably in conjunction with your statements originally. can I just clarify? You wouldn't be showing films or having live music at the times when the therapy is going on?
Yeah, 100%. And if I can just give a few proof points in there. The Tavern used to be famous for live music. Frankly, the economics don't work. It costs us £250 for a very small band in the Tavern. You have to sell a lot of product to get that back incrementally. So we have stopped live music pretty much. We very occasionally have it. So for race week, we will have a band in. That tends to bring people in. But we won't be a live music venue. We've never shown a film. The only reason we asked for the film license was, frankly, to give us options. But we have no plans for showing films. We certainly have no plans for live music. Again, what I would like to retain is the ability to have live music during the festivals. We are a festival partner, and at last festival, the whole road was blocked. It was effectively closed at the jazz festival because we had a jazz band inside an 11-piece jazz band. We barely were able to fit them in. We actually made no money because we can't serve alcohol outside, so we couldn't physically get people into the pub, but it was a very popular place for the jazz. So I'd like to think that during the jazz festival, which is, we usually have the Saturday, when you guys aren't there anyway, we can have live music outside. But frankly, if live music isn't part of the license, it won't really affect us dramatically at all.
Thank you. Sorry, this is probably a question for you. Do you work on a Saturday, basically? So, sorry, I know it's the wrong order.
That's okay. Currently, we don't, and that's our choice. But there is a demand for therapeutic sessions to happen on the weekend where children aren't missing school. And the tenancy rental arrangement we have is for 7 days a week. So there's that question at there. This would mean we couldn't. A licence that is enabling this to happen, the live music on the weekends, if that was a regular thing. A one-off, of course. We'd like to work collaboratively with you so that we could, make things work for everybody. What I would like to sort of point out is we did come and speak to you as soon as the planning notice went up or the licensing notice went up to say, is there any wriggle room in terms of opening hours? And Beth, our practice manager, was told that no, there was no wriggle room at all.
I can answer that one, actually. This is probably nothing to do with the committee at all, but I had to sack the general manager 3 weeks ago. So I, with no experience, and Sam, who has got lots of experience, we're now doing it. I bought it as an investment. I sacked the general manager for behaviour very similar to that, frankly. And that's a matter of legal record.
But you would still be having the recorded music in the outside space, I think, is my concern.
Yeah, and I think it's an absolutely valid concern. We do have recorded music within the tavern. Frankly, and I'll let Sam, who's much more experienced at hospitality than I am, I don't see why we would need live music outside. I think we changed when you and I spoke. We changed the music element because of environmental health. So we would close the doors at 10 o'clock for the tiny tavern, which is tiny. But to your specific concern, councillor, I see no reason why we would need any music outside. Again, we're a dining proposition predominantly, and I think on a summer's day, there's no reason why you shouldn't dine with the bird song in your ears.
Right, thank you. I'm just wondering why, you've applied for all these things, so you would have the right to do it, even if it wasn't a good idea, if you see what I mean.
I see exactly what you mean, and forgive me, because this sounds like a real excuse, but it really isn't, and Jacob knows this. The old general manager I didn't want as a general manager from the outset. My business partner wanted him. He'd worked with him back in Lucky Onion days. Both my business partner and the general manager have now gone. I sacked the general manager. My business partner then decided to leave. I saw no reason why we applied for everything. I asked the question. I was told, apply for everything, and then you can just let things drop if necessary, but apply for everything you want. I don't think that's a particularly pragmatic way of going about it. I was not executive in this organisation until the 1st of September. The 1st of October. And so I've been learning very, very quickly. But in direct answer to your question, we don't need any of those things. What we want for that space is to be able to have people to be served food and to be served drink and to enjoy the outside space during the summer, and that's it. Our big times of operation are obviously the weekend. I would like to be able to operate lunches. Our lunchtime trade, we have very few drinks at lunchtime, clearly. We're not in the 1980s anymore. People who work tend not to drink. So we sell very little alcohol, even within the tavern during the daytime with people who are dining. And I'm very happy to continue that and to have licensing restrictions to stop that happening as well.
Any more questions, Councillor Pemberton? Yes. There was yes, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'll just mention, because it's not something that members might have encountered before and is quite niche on licences these days. But you can attach to premises licences non-standard timings where you could specify an event or a date or something similar within the year where you could extend or amend licensing timings. So an example would be which a lot of premises in Cheltenham will have, for the festival week in March, they'll probably have another 2 hours tacked on to their sales of alcohol, and that will only be valid for their festival week. And that is something that members can attach to the licence if they so choose.
Yes, Councillor.
Sorry. So does that mean that something like that could be done here, so that if they didn't normally show films and have live music for special events or occasions, they could have that option, as it were?
Yeah, it is absolutely within the realms of possibility, for example, to grant a licence which has live music for use during Cheltenham festivals, such as the Jazz and Music Festival, with wider or fewer restrictions, I should say, than it would do year round. So rather than just being Saturday to Sunday between midday and to 10:30 at night, it could be during a festival weekend. It's from Thursday to Monday from 11 a.m. till 11 p.m. Just as an example. I'm reaching for timings there, but just to explain.
But that wouldn't have to be decided now. That would be as and when the situation arose. Is that right? Or
so it's something that would be attached to the licence now upon grant. So you would specify on the licence certain non-standard timings that apply annually based upon when they are specified in the licence. So it's something that goes on the licence, will be included on the summary, and would be active from the moment it is granted through to any time where it is surrendered or lapses.
so we'd really need to know in a bit more detail what was needed, wouldn't we? If we're going to have to state something now, that.
Can I make a suggestion here that I want to be sure, because I think something that you said, the applicant said, was that you didn't actually want all of these things, but it was suggested to you that you sort of chuck everything into the pot just in case. Now, I'm assuming that if we brought this in, you could have a conversation with officers as to when those times may be relevant.
What you want to do now is get him to tell you exactly what he wants, because you need to decide.
Oh, that needs to be, yeah. Yes, so yes, those times would have to be tonight. It's not something we could do afterwards. Now, if you found that was too restrictive, then we'll have to go back to exactly what is here and now. But if you feel that you could give us some times when you might want exceptions, that might be helpful to some of the objectors. Sorry, just a moment.
It's going back to the point it's making.
Yeah, okay. So what exactly would you be asking for? Would it just be race week or maybe festivals? If you could let us know what times would you need to show films?
Yeah, just what does he want?
Yeah, okay. I'm told to leave it there.
Okay, let me think very quickly on my feet then. So we don't need to show films. So I'm very happy to strike films out completely. We never have done. I didn't see why that would make a difference to our business whatsoever. So don't need to show films. I think in terms of the objection to music, I think a good starting point would be to say we would not do any music ever between the hours of 8 and 6. So we just wouldn't do that. With perhaps one exception, and I say this simply because I don't know the entire timings of the festivals. We are a partner of both the Jazz and the Music Festival, and my recollection is they were both on Saturday, but clearly those festivals are across the whole week. And what I wouldn't want to do is go to the festival and say, you can only use us on a Saturday. But I don't know. And then the only other time, so if we were able to have music post 6 o'clock, I'd be very happy to say that's only Friday and Saturday nights, that's fine. And again, as I'm saying that, the reality is we don't do music in the Tabard at the moment. It costs £250. Whether it would be economically viable, I don't know. But if we have to decide now, that's what I would ask for now. Music post 6 o'clock or post 7 o'clock every day. During the day, only for the festivals, including, as you've mentioned, Jacob, the Race Week Festival of March, when Cheltenham becomes Dublin and you just have to play the game as a hospitality operator, much as we don't like it. So yeah, I suppose in synopsis, no music prior to 6 o'clock on any day, post 6 o'clock only on Fridays and Saturdays, with the exception of Music Festival Week, Jazz Festival Week and Racing Festival Week. And in fact, again, because we're trying to be specific here, Racing Festival Week, we don't need anything during the day. What is it? The races. So again, we can keep the restriction post 6 o'clock anyway. So my only concerns are the two Cheltenham festivals, the cultural festivals, let's call them, the Music and Jazz Festival. I'd like to be able to accommodate them if they say, we'd like to have a jazz band at 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. But I'm very happy to commit to this personally with my word. We'll work with you around that anyway. You know, we won't make any decisions, and I'll introduce you to them, and we'll work together.
So I don't know if officers have got those
Yeah.
timings, and do we need to be, because I think you said Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays.
I did, then I realised I was incorrect, and I think Fridays and Saturdays is fine. We would never pay the money for a band on a Thursday night.
So Fridays and Saturdays year round? And
No, in fact, outside, that space will only be used when it's appropriate to be outside. So probably from, I don't know, March to September.
okay.
We certainly won't use
And
it
then,
during the winter.
During festivals, so race and
Music and jazz.
festivals, you would want that all week or just on certain days?
I would like the option for all week. But again, contextually, this is not music that we're putting on. We're providing a location for the Jazz and Music Festival. And they typically use, it was 2 bands for the jazz and 1 for the music, wasn't it? Yeah. So they use it, and it's for their free events around town. So they have this around town program. So there would be 1 or 2 events of about an hour each during each of those weeks. So again, it's not my music that's going on. We're providing a location for the Cheltenham Festival.
Can I just ask a question of officers on that one? If this gentleman's not paying the performers, sorry, yes, yours. If this gentleman is not paying and they're just using his space, would he need a licence?
There would, excuse me, there would need to be a licence in situ. Whoever was the licensee would be for
Right.
the business and the performers to determine between them. But it would appear sensible for it to be the more permanent fixture within that space to be a licensee.
Right. So I would suggest that during festivals, you may well be looking at the week. I don't know whether just having 1 or 2 days might be too restrictive, though I don't want to, if you feel that 1 or 2 days is adequate.
I think it is. Again, it's not my diary, it's not my own music. We're just providing the space. So I'm very happy for the license to restrict us to, I'm even very happy for the license to restrict us to 2 or possibly 3 performances during the course of the week. And the performances, from memory, are between half an hour and an hour. They're not very long. So I'm very happy to say during those weeks, we're allowed to effectively host 2 or 3, let's call them concerts, on behalf of the Cheltenham Festival, and that's it. We certainly won't be putting our own music or event on during those periods. So again, to clarify, during race week, it would be nice, and again, after 6 o'clock, to be able to have the opportunity to have a live act on during race week, but that's it.
Yes, where I was really coming from, if you said for the festival week, if you've got an actual day that you say, well, they always come on a Thursday and a Friday, or a Friday and a Saturday, that's one thing. But if you're saying it will be maybe 1 day, maybe 2 days during the week, we would have to specify, or we say for that festival week. So if you can sort of let us know, is it for Thursday, is it for Friday, is it for Saturday, or is it
So the problem is,
cover the week?
Is it possible to issue a licence that says during that week, but only for 2 periods of time, to be decided at that time, rather than sort of saying it has to be Thursday lunchtime and Friday lunchtime?
Yes, please.
Yes, so you could absolutely state that during Cheltenham Jazz Week, there are extended times for live music that apply, but there may only be 2 events which must be notified to the Licensing and Environmental Health Authority 1 month prior to the event taking place. Something like that would be a reasonable and proportionate non-standard timing and condition to include on a licence.
So can I ask you, does that sound acceptable to you?
that sounds completely acceptable. As I say, we're just a host, so I don't know what their programming problems are. We just say you can use our space, and they typically use us for no more than 2 events in each of the jazz and music weeks. So that would be perfect.
So are there any more member questions of the thing? Do any of the objectors have a question? And if you could try and keep them brief, please.
I could do some fancy words and phrases as a question, but you'll know what I mean. I regret that this is adversarial between us, and I'm sorry about that. But I'd just like to say, whatever you grant today is going to be granted. It's going to set a precedent for the long-term future. So it's all very well saying, oh, well, we could cut this bit out and add that bit on. I'd just ask you to consider that this is would set a precedent for use of land over which we have rights. It's not for the building. The building is no bigger than a residential garage. It's the courtyard, which is access to and is adjoining our building. So whatever you give today, or whatever you grant today, sorry, I didn't get your name, Mr. Holliday. Perhaps Mr. Holliday might want to think about withdrawing his application and reframing it after consultation. If we're not careful, we're going to design a camel here. Thank you.
I think I'm able to, an application today, if it was, this is not ad infinitum, is it? This will have, oh, it is, okay. But if it was found to be unacceptable in the long term, we can still revisit it. Unlike within planning, which we came to earlier, where a planning application is made, we can't revisit it. This one, I think we could revisit if it was found to be unacceptable.
I will just add to that, sorry, on the review process, that's an application that can be submitted by any party, person, individual, based upon any of the licensing objectives. So if the license were to be granted today and following grant, you find that there are enormous increases in the amounts of public nuisance, it's an application that you can then submit to us, and the licence will come before a committee and they will decide whether it needs to be amended or revoked. So there are options available based upon the permissible nature of licensing, that it can be taken back and withdrawn and revoked by the committee if required.
Okay, yes, please.
I'm not sure if there's clarity here that the licensing application is for Unit 4. It isn't for the outside space outside it. It's for Unit 4, which is probably slightly bigger than that table. So an 11-piece jazz band doesn't stand a chance, you know, maybe if they squish up. The outside space that these live bands or the music or everything's going to be shown on, it doesn't belong to Unit 4.
It's a road.
It's a road. It's an access road. It's a driveway that we need to be able to access 24/7. And I know that that's not part of the licensing committee's task, but the licensing application is for Unit 4, a very, very small space. The other point that I wanted to know is that
This is questions of the applicant.
Okay.
It's not a chance to have another debate.
So my question then to the applicant is, how do you intend to maintain an environment where your patrons will stay within their space and not, for instance, receive a phone call and get up and walk down to our space to have that call and therefore disrupt sessions? What measures do you have in place? I would like to see more in your application about what you're going to do to prevent that noise disturbance in our space.
So again, I think we need to be really careful with how we're defining things here, because I don't want the committee to think this is a road that one car can go down. This is a whole patio area that has a right of access and egress down the road, which is effectively on the left. It's quite a wide space, and tables are there semi-permanently and do not need to be moved for a car to access and egress. That's been happening for the last 3 years, to my knowledge, and probably prior to that. So I don't want us to think that tables go onto a road, which then may have to be moved for access and egress. That is not the case. And I think that's what you've just presented as being the case. That's not true. That's the first thing. Second thing is that Four Cats was a licensed premises there in the Unit 2 units down. They operated for 3 years. I'm not privy to any issues that they had, but that seemed to work okay. And we are simply using the tables by agreement with the Coffee Pod. The Coffee Pod closes at 4 p.m. We use their tables. And then we've got a different commercial arrangement for if we have people who want to have lunch. So I don't think the issue of access and egress of cars is relevant here. In terms of management of the space, the space which is your space, I guess you could put in the nicest possible way, that's not my concern. in the same way as if you go out of a pub and walk in someone's driveway, that's not really my concern either. The driver, that's about trespass. So what we will be doing is making the space look a lot more inviting than it currently is, with pot plants, with exterior lighting, which clearly won't be in your space as well. So it just, I'm guessing your space won't be an inviting place to be, because they'll be going right towards your building to do that. So I'm not sure that's a particularly relevant objection. I don't know how we can police that apart from to make the curtilage clear.
Okay. Oh, yes, sorry, Officer would like to make a comment.
I would just say the plan for the premises isn't included with the committee report, and as we kind of touched on, it's separate to deeds and rights of access. But the plan for the premises licence is Unit 4 and the outside space from the entrance on Royal Well Place down to the end of the curtilage of the studios building. So that space could be used for licensable activity if granted and authorised under the licence. Obviously, whether there's permission in place and discussions about deeds and rights of access is for a different forum, but the licence itself would cover the outside space based upon the application submitted.
Thank you. Excuse me. Right, so the applicant, you now have your final right of reply if you'd like to bring up any comments that haven't already been covered that you'd like to put before the committee.
No, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think we've had a good debate. I don't think there's anything, it would be wasteful of time to say anything else. So I hope we can deal with this collaboratively. Very happy to do that, and certainly don't want to impinge on what is clearly important work that the objectors have.
Thank you very much. Right, now we have to, excuse me. Do we want, right, I'm being told it's best if we go out. So we'll go out to make our deliberations, and we'll be back with you probably by past. That's Right, thank you very much. And I'll move straight to the legal officer to give you our decisions.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Having considered the application, the evidence provided, the representations made by all parties, including those made at the hearing and the written representations, the provisions of the Licensing Act 2003, the obligation to promote the 4 licensing objectives, the relevant sections of the Council's statement of licensing policy and the statutory guidance, it was resolved that the premises licence be granted subject to modified conditions. Sorry. Including those agree with environmental. Can you read, Chair? Sorry.
Agreed with the Environmental Health Authority being added to the licence. Performance of film will be excluded from the licence as agreed with the applicant. How do I?
Arrows.
Arrows. That's it. There will be no live music save for every Friday and Saturday between 1800 hours and 22:30 hours. In relation to all racing festivals in Cheltenham race calendar, live music is permitted any day between the hours of 1800 and 22:30. In relation to Jazz Festival and the Music Festival, live music is permitted on up to 3 occasions on each of those weeks with a month's written notice to the licensing authority for timings required. Subcommittee found the applicant to be very open and honest and prepared to concede numerous points of his application to work with businesses around him. Applicant has moved his position to try and respond to those objections raised today. The Licensing Committee has no jurisdiction over the use of the driveway and parking areas. This is not something the committee can be involved in. The location is the town centre core area. There are other public houses within metres of the venue. It is already a very busy area, thoroughfare, not reasonable to refuse on those grounds. I think that.
Keep going.
Oh, sorry. Subcommittee deem him to be a responsible applicant based on what they have seen and heard this evening. Environmental Health can monitor if there are issues, open to review if there are any issues. Single small businesses, not a big chain moving in. Oh, sorry, yeah. Understand the objections raised, but hope that concessions offered this evening have alleviated some of the concerns. And right of appeal within 21 days for anyone dissatisfied with the decision. Residents reminded that there is a right of review should there be any issues once the business is up and running. And this was the unanimous decision of the subcommittee. All right. So yes, you have our decision, and officers will get in touch with you to give you perhaps a better response than I reading our legal officer's notes. But with that, I think you have our decision. And the final agenda item is any other business the chairman determines to be urgent and which require decision. Well, I have none. So with that, I'll close the meeting at 6:50. 5:40. Sorry, 5:40. I'm reading the clock.